There is a quiet kind of strength that people admire without ever really understanding. A calm presence, a measured voice, a softness that seems to rise above chaos rather than sink into it. People call it emotional maturity. They call it impressive. They call it rare, but they rarely ask what it costs. Because behind the steadiness, there is often someone who learned very early that they had no other choice. Someone who carries storms internally so others don't have to. Someone who learned to translate their own pain into language safer for the room. This is the part nobody sees, the dark side of always being emotionally mature. It begins with a pattern. The one who steps back when others push forward. The one who speaks softly when voices rise. The one who apologizes first, not because they were wrong, but because they can see how much hurt is behind another person's anger. These people move through the world like diffusers. They absorb tension, smooth rough edges, lower the temperature of situations that might have burned someone else. From the outside, it looks like wisdom.
Inside, it feels more like vigilance.
Because emotional maturity is often mistaken for emotional abundance. But sometimes it is just emotional restraint, a silence, a holding, a constant calculation of who needs what and how much of themselves they can afford to give without breaking. And they rarely break where others can see. People aren't born emotionally mature, they grow into it out of necessity. Some learn it in childhood, in homes where emotions moved too quickly or unpredictably. A slammed door, a quiet withdrawal, a parent who was fragile in ways a child couldn't name, only soothe. So the child learned to self-regulate before they even had language for it. They learned to scan the environment for emotional cues. They learned to anticipate shifts, to soften their presence, to become safe. Others learn it through heartbreak, through being misunderstood, through friendships or relationships where being the calm one was the only way to keep the connection from falling apart. And some learn it through observation, watching what happened to people who expressed too much, hoped too loudly, or broke too openly. They decided, consciously or not, that maturity was protection. So emotional maturity becomes a shield, a way of being that keeps the world from touching the most vulnerable parts of them. Psychology has words for this: attunement, hyper-awareness, self-regulation. Studies show that people who appear emotionally mature often possess heightened interoception, the ability to sense internal signals. They know when their heart rate rises, when their breath changes, when tension gathers in their shoulders. They respond before the emotion fully forms. This creates the illusion that they are never overwhelmed. But in truth, they are overwhelmed early, at the smallest spark, long before others notice the flame. There is also the tendency toward emotional labor, the invisible work of managing the emotional climate of a space, of holding the weight of others' reactions, of cushioning blows, of predicting outcomes. Research shows that those who become emotional caretakers often develop a kind of learned empathy, intense, precise, sometimes exhausting. It is a strength, but it comes with fatigue no one talks about. Because when someone is always mature, people stop checking if they're okay. Their calm becomes expected. Their understanding becomes assumed. Their boundaries become flexible in other people's eyes. And this creates an emotional asymmetry that slowly wears on them. So a conflict forms, quiet, internal, rarely spoken aloud. On one side, the desire to stay grounded and composed, to be the person who doesn't make things harder, to be the one who understands. On the other side, the longing to be held, to be messy, to be confused, to be allowed the same emotional humanity they offer so generously. But something stops them, a fear of burdening others, a worry that their feelings will be misinterpreted, a belief that falling apart means losing respect, a lifetime of being told, directly or indirectly, that they are the strong one. So they swallow their reactions, filter their disappointments, translate their anger into gentler sentences, carry heartbreak with dignity and silence. Not because they think they should, but because they don't know what it would feel like to do it any other way. There is resistance inside them, a small voice asking, "When is it my turn?" But the world rarely echoes that question back. Eventually, something shifts. It might be exhaustion. A moment where their composure finally feels heavy instead of noble. Or a relationship where someone says, "You don't always have to be okay," and means it. Someone who doesn't interpret emotional expression as instability. Someone who makes space for them the way they have made space for others. Or it might be a quiet realization during an ordinary day. A recognition that emotional maturity wasn't just a choice. It was a response, a survival strategy, a finely built structure designed to keep them safe. And safety is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it becomes a barrier. The turning point is not dramatic. There is no explosion of emotion, no sudden rebellion, just a gentle awareness. They are allowed to be human too. They are allowed to be tired. They are allowed to not understand everything. They are allowed to have needs without explaining them in perfect sentences. Maturity does not disappear when vulnerability is allowed. It expands. Healing for them looks like permission, not the loud kind, the quiet kind that unfolds slowly. It looks like embracing emotions without immediately analyzing them, letting sadness be sadness, not a lesson. Letting anger be anger, not a problem to solve. Letting confusion be a sign of depth, not failure. It looks like taking up space, not by dominating it, but by belonging in it. By acknowledging that emotional maturity is not meant to be a performance. It is meant to be shared, balanced, reciprocated. They begin to notice when they are over-explaining their feelings, or translating them into something more palatable, or stepping into the role of the mature one out of habit, not truth. They start practicing emotional honesty in small doses. A longer pause before saying, "It's fine." A quieter admission of disappointment. A softer expression of need, not in pursuit of being dramatic, but in pursuit of being whole. Healing is not loud for them. It is subtle. A shift in posture, a loosening of the shoulders, a breath released without fear that someone will need them immediately after. It is the realization that understanding others is powerful, but letting others understand them is intimate. And so they begin to live differently, still calm,
Still thoughtful.
still capable of seeing beneath the surface of things, but something inside softens. Not the kind of softness that comes from self-erasure, the kind that comes from finally being allowed to exist without constant translation. Because emotional maturity was never the problem. The problem was the expectation that they had to live there permanently, that they had to be the steady one, the rational one, the grounding force at every moment. In truth, emotional maturity is most beautiful when it is chosen, not required. When it flows naturally, not compulsively. When it supports connection, not replaces it. They start to understand something they once offered others, but rarely gave themselves. Grace.
Time.
Humanity. The kind that says you are allowed to be more than the strong one. The kind that makes space for both wisdom and weakness. The kind that recognizes maturity not as perfection, but as presence. And in this presence, they find a deeper truth. Emotional maturity is not the absence of need. It is the courage to feel without abandoning oneself. This is where healing lives, in the quiet acceptance that being deeply human is not a step backward from maturity. It is the heart of it.